Hey everyone, it's Doug with B&H, and today we're looking at a brand new E-mount lens from Sony. This is the PZ 16-35 f4, and it's a full-frame wide-angle zoom lens with an emphasis on power zoom functionality. Now the images here are sharp all the way through thanks to some remarkable engineering feats, and video content creators in particular are going to get a ton of use out of this lens, especially if you're using a camera like the FX3 or a ZV E-10 for example. So let's dive right in. Sony's latest E-mount lens provides full-frame coverage, and at 16mm that's wide enough to get sprawling landscapes and architecture, while at the 35mm end you can get into street photography territory, all while keeping a constant f4 aperture. What's impressive though is how consistent the sharpness is from edge to edge, even at 16mm. The star of the show, however, is the power zoom, which is powered by 4 XD linear motors. Now, for such a small lens, the control of the zoom is quite impressive. You can use the normal zoom ring as you'd expect, an on-lens zoom lever, and when using a camera like the FX3, an on-camera zoom lever control as well. When using the zoom ring, zoom functionality is responsive and largely dependent on your velocity. You can actually extend the zoom ring to include Sony's clear image zoom, which extends zoom at the sensor level. On the FX3 at least, you can customize the responsiveness of the on-camera zoom lever in 2 stages. A lighter touch can be set to a slower zoom, for example, while a firm press could be full speed. You can of course set these to be equal so that there is no variation in zoom speed whatsoever. Now, while you won't get snap zoom level speeds here, the control available here is impressive given that it's intended for mirrorless bodies. You can get video camera-esque lens coverage in an incredibly small package. It also means you can do some pretty cool tricks like dolly zooms or even control the zoom remotely. Optically, there's a lot going on here as well. With 12 groups and 13 elements, there's a lot of glass packed in here, including 2 advanced spherical lenses, an ED glass element, super ED element, and I didn't even mention that the focusing and zooming is all performed internally. Meanwhile, focus breathing has been reduced optically, but there's also support for breathing compensation on compatible camera bodies. Now, one of my favorite things to see on any lens, the option to declick the aperture. This is invaluable for video and cinema shooters as it prevents jerky iris changes that you might need to perform when going between darker or brighter environments. When combined with a camera with an electronic ND filter like the Sony FX6, you can ride the iris for depth of field racks, all while the camera maintains equivalent exposure through the electronic ND. The body of the lens is impressive in its own right, as it happens to be the lightest lens of its type and class. At just 12.4 ounces, it won't add much to your kit, making it even better for run-and-gun videography or street photography. And at 3.4 inches long by 3.1 inches in diameter, it maintains a small profile as well. You get 3 rings on the 16-35, aperture, zoom, and focus, with electronic control over all 3. On the left side, there's the zoom lever, which means you can enjoy the benefits of a lever even on mirrorless bodies without their own built-in control. Below that is a customizable function button. Over on the right side, there's an iris lock, and below that, the iris click switch. So while the new PZ 16-35mm produces fantastic images and video, what's perhaps most fascinating about this lens is how versatile it is for such a small size, and the kind of possibilities that this opens up for shooters who like to stick with as minimal a rig as possible. Coupled with pretty much any Sony mirrorless body, and thanks to the constant f4 aperture, you've got the wide end covered better than ever. So that's it for the Sony PZ 16-35mm f4 zoom lens. I'm Doug with B&H, and I'll see you next time.